If I could go back and tell myself anything at 18, it would probably be to lock in. No, I'm just playing this. I wouldn't say that. But, first thing I would tell myself is that timeline that you have in your head, that 5-year plan, that 10-year plan, that shit don't mean anything, bro. That fake ass 5-year plan you have that you tell other people so they don't look at you like a loser. This made up plan that sounds good on the surface. People try and poke holes in it. You got some patches. The thing I used to tell myself is, I'm gonna work 5 years and then I'm gonna start my own business. Well, it's been 5 years. Have I started a business? No. And, it's not just because I don't want to, right? I've had some career changes along the way. How can you start a business, doing something if you don't have a solid foundation, right? The business I wanted to create, I wanted like a blue collar, I wanted my own business, right? The problem was I went to BOCES or vocational school for welding, and then I didn't even go and become a welder. I became a press brake operator. And then 3 years after I graduate, 3 years after I'm doing that, I switch and now I'm doing construction, right? I'm a plumber. First of all, how was I ever going to start my own business as a press brake operator? I was using like a machine worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What am I going to go and buy a shop and a press brake? And then what? A sheet metal factory business isn't quite easy to start from the ground up. If I was a welder, it might have been. But I wasn't. So, a lot of you probably have these timelines. Time goes by fast, right? You say, you're going to give yourself 5 years. If you're 18 years old, you got this 5-year plan. You're thinking, man, that's forever away. 5 years. And then 5 years comes and you're like, you think you're going to be so much more mature, or you're going to have this understanding of life that you don't have in the moment. It never comes, man. It never comes. The same way you feel at 18, bro, that is the same brain you will have at 23. Like, you'll go through some things, you'll earn your stripes, you'll be a little bit more mature. But to think that, you'll be comfortable enough to go and do something like start a business or move or, whatever you got planned, it's just not realistic. Like, you're gonna run into some problems, and, that kind of goes into my second point, is that the second thing I would tell myself is waiting for the right moment. Here, what did I write down there? Yeah. Waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. And it's an easy out, right? It's a way to kind of push off doing something so that you can wait, right? Like, I'm not gonna do it. Can't do it right now. I got this, and there's that. That's just an easy out, bro. You're being a coward. There will never be a perfect moment to ever do anything. What is a perfect moment? What even is a good moment? Like, truly think about your goals and think about what would be a good moment for you to pursue whatever you're waiting to pursue. And what makes you think you wouldn't let that slip by either, if you're just letting regular moments slip by. these things in life, you just have to pursue them. You know, you gotta just do it, bro. Like that video of Shia LaBeouf, you know, we all saw it growing up. We all thought it was a joke, but that shit, you know, I can see why he was so passionate, because you just have to do shit. Like, there's never going to be the right moment. The right moment is now. So, and a lot of the times, you know, waiting for the right moment, you know, if you wait, let's say you even wait for the perfect moment. Say the perfect moment comes up to do whatever you want to do. Would you have rather taken that perfect moment or just done it in a moment 6 months ago and now you're 6 months ahead of schedule? You know? Right? That's kind of goes into my third point is, you know, if you're 18 years old, you got to realize you can turn everything around in 6 months. 3 to 6 months, you can flip shit. You know, if you think you're a chud, you can start working out, bro. You could put on 10 pounds of muscle in 6 months. You know, if you start going every day to learn a language, you could be pretty damn far in 6 months. You want to pursue a new career, you could have a new job, earning double the money you're making right now in 3 months. You know, now imagine, you know, a year, 2 years, you know, so stop thinking in 5-year intervals. You know, if you're 18, start thinking in 3 to 6 months. You know, how can I be better in 3 to 6 months? You know, you should have long-term goals, right? Like investing, you know, these are like 40-year plans, you know, working out, you know, that might be a 40-year plan. You want to be healthy when you're 60. You know, you want to have a good retirement when you're 60. Is that a police van? No, there's no one in it. But, you know, the 5 and 10 and 15-year plans, you know, you can get caught up in those, but what's really important is, you know, the 40-year plans, you know, the things that you can do, you know, 0.1% every day. Can you get better? Can you invest $5 a day for 40 years? You know, can you just go to the gym? Well, I would say going to the gym that could be, you know, a 3 to 6 month plan. You know, the 40-year plans and then the 3 to 6 month plans. You know, how can you turn your life around in 3 to 6 months? Can you read a book can you start reading every day? Not read a book every day. That would be locked in. Can you read, you know, 20, 30 pages of a book every day? Imagine you did that for 6 months. You know, fuck that, 3 months. If you did that for 90 days, you would be a different person at the end. You know, you could get through 10 books in that time. If you started working out every day for an hour, hard as shit, 3 months, you know what? The beginner gains are real, man. You start working out every day for 3 months, you will have an insane transformation. You know, make an investment plan, you know, start eating healthy, you know, change up your wardrobe, stop wearing fucking sweatpants out, you know, start dressing nice, you know, change the perception of what people think of you, you know, stop looking like a slob, get a different haircut. Get a different haircut, cut your beard a different way, start dressing different, start working out. 3 to 6 months, you could be a completely different person. You know, pursue a career, you know, take college classes, right? Like, if you're 18, you should be focused on 3 to 6 month plans, and, you know, that can be anything from, you know, people would look at a 5-year plan and say, oh, get a degree. Nah, start looking at shit like that. It's 3 to 6 months. A semester is what, 3 months? You know, you stack up enough 3 and 6 year plans, you will get much more accomplished than a 5-year plan. Bullshit fake 5-year plan that you just tell people when they ask what you got going on, because you don't want to sound like a fucking loser. And, yeah, that was basically all I had. So that, if I could tell myself something at 18, as a 23-year-old, that's what I would say, you know. Fuck that 5-year plan that you got in your head. That shit is made up. That shit is fake. You know it. Stop bullshitting with yourself. 3 to 6 month plans, and, you know, be true to them, you know, hit them hard. And what was the last one? Oh, yeah, and stop waiting for the perfect moment. That shit is not going to come. It's not. No such thing as a perfect moment, right? Unless you're like smoking cigarettes in the woods with your boys or some shit. Like, what are you gonna do? Pursue your fucking career when you're doing that? Perfect moments are meant to be enjoyed, not pursuing shit. So that's all. Hope you guys have a good day.